Welcome to the TryPod. It's a wacky week 27 preview, and it's always a wild one, the final regular season week. So we have unique conditions, but that's unique opportunities for us all as well. And it's always a fascinating time to monitor the markets for all the upcoming games, which I'm going to do in real time for you guys because team lists have not even dropped yet around 27. I've got best bets ready to fire. I'll give you advice on how I would play these games, and as well as once we find out what the team lists are, ways I play them. I've got correlated multis. I've got sharpshooter tips, all right? I've got it all. So that's why we're coming in early, because it's going to give us a unique and hopefully an exclusive look at how I go about things. And I think it's just going to be a fun way to make the show even more exciting this afternoon. So I'm sorry to those who this timing didn't suit, but hopefully you'll get plenty out of this, and I appreciate those who are with me. Now, we did only go 0-1 last week. Bit stiff when you take Cows plus 7.5 and they lose by 8. Did Brisbane score a couple of tries of forward passes? Probably. Was that late try by the Cows disallowed a little bit harsh, perhaps? I don't think it was a bad call because it was a reasonably close game. Those 2 tries late in the first half killed us. But we won a best bet by the hook in round 25. We gave it straight back in round 26. You'll see in the results I've called it 1-1, 1-1 with an asterisk, because we did get the result on the Raiders minor premiership bet. And that was $1.83 I shared to you ahead of round 19. So that did cash with a week to go. We didn't even have to sweat the final round. So now I've included that in the overall best bet results. You're going to see 58%. I know somebody was on my case saying that's still not good enough, but it's actually tougher than you think if you do track your own tips on 2A markets for a whole year. See how you go with that. Now, Undertaker, Benny Howard, they both won their tips. Ponies was on Cows with me. Benny Williamson did miss out last week. I've invited the boys to share some early plays, and I've got a play from all of them, including some videos, so I'll share them soon. It's worth mentioning all of the sharpshooters, all of those boys are in profit this season, each and every one of them. Now, not Nicole, and he hasn't been able to share regularly, and he's gone 0-6, but I think if you're reasonable, you'll admit Nicole's shooting for double-digit odds. So, I mean, one hit changes all that, and you're not going to hit those frequently. But to the other boys, well done. You know, Ponies leading the way, but Undertaker on a win streak has pulled himself back into profit. Benny Williamson with a lot of juicy hits this year, and Benny Howard, I think he's 3-1 on a small sample size as well. So good work by all those boys. Okay, so I did give the heads up that this show would be live on the TryPod socials. Hopefully some of you saw that, or people are just finding the show now. Again, appreciate you. Send in how you see the games. I really do think this will be, as Clarkey always used to say, let's peel back the curtain. This is truly going to be behind the curtain, when usually I'm reviewing the team list like a madman for 90 minutes before I go live. The team lists are going to go live in 25 minutes from now. We've got plenty of good stuff to cover before they drop. I'm going to speculate on what I think is going to come out, so then I'll be proven right or wrong pretty quickly. But I've got some bets that I want to hit now, and let's send the bookies into a little tailspin here. Let's frighten a few of them, because they're going to think the information's already out, because I'm going to share some bets that basically the goal is these bets won't be available in half an hour from now. And if I get it wrong, they could be worse bets, looking a lot worse in half an hour, right? Or they could be well in our favor. But we're going to fire away. And first team I'm looking at is the Cronulla Sharks. And I want to play them 2 different ways, independent bets, right? So I'm going to play Cronulla plus half a point in the first half. It's $1.83 on Ladbrokes, Neds, and Sportsbet. And then I want to play Cronulla plus half a point in the second half, which is $1.91 on Ladbrokes and Neds. It's because the Dogs have nothing to play for. So despite what Serraldo said, I think they are crazy, the Dogs. Everyone else in the top 4, everyone else who's a contender has or will rest players this weekend. And if the Dogs don't, they're mad. And they've obviously lost Kiraz, Kikau's been out sick. I mean, this bet is about, let's go on Cronulla, who may have something really important to play for. And even if they don't, we get 2 under strength sides playing each other, and we still get a fair bet. So I want to play Cronulla as an underdog in each half. Then I'm going to play my Fins, minus 9.5, $1.90 everywhere. And I also want to play the Dolphins overs. I'm going to play their team total over 28.5 at $1.80 on 365. And I'm going to spoil, since Undertaker couldn't send me a clip, he did pick that as well. He's picked the Dolphins team total over. So we're on the identical play there. He sent me his write-up. I'll try and read it later. And that's because I think that game has overs written all over it, being a Sunday arvo. Canberra, again, nothing to play for. So let's bet against a team that has nothing to play for. I know it's widely expected Canberra's going to name a severely undermanned side, but I think it's going to be even more extreme than expected. And I think that line's going to be well into double digits half an hour from now. So that's why I want to play it now. And it's $1.90 across the board. We already missed the 6.5 that opened on Sunday, but I still just think, and look, you're going to say, well, what if the Dolphins have got nothing to play for? What if the Roosters win Friday? Here's the thing. I still reckon, even if it's just a celebration, even if it's just a final home game for the Dolphins, they'll still turn up. It's going to be a sellout crowd at KO, and they'll put on a show. And if the Rabbitohs actually upset the Roosters, then we've got a dynamite play on our hands as well. But I'm not relying on the Dolphins needing it to be a must-win. I just think that it's going to be a mismatch because it's going to be the Raiders' B team, and nobody important to the Raiders should be coming north, right? So that's why I'm going to play that both ways. I like overs, I like fins, and I'm going to lay the lumber there too. And then a couple more plays. I'll go through these real quick because they're not related to selections, so they're not going to move as fast, but they are related to round 27. They're a couple of basically meaningless games. I'm going to play Titans over 22.5 team total at $1.85 on 365. They play the Tigers, and that is because the Titans are at home. It's daytime. They're motivated to avoid the spoon. Tigers play with flair. They might score plenty of points too. I looked at over 51.5, but since I see the game's nearly a coin flip, I'll play the underdog at over 22.5. And similar reasoning, Eels Knights. I've just got Eels attack coming together, some exciting players. Knights, nothing to play for. They've blown many tries in the last few weeks. So if a couple stick, it's not that hard. In the final game of the season, good conditions again. Maybe the Knights are playing for the spoon. Maybe they're playing for absolutely nothing. But I'm going to play overs in a game where the intensity is just not going to be there. Okay, so that's going to be 6 best bets. I'll put them on the screen as soon as I can. And I may even have a 7th or an 8th play. After team list drop, I'm going to put each team on the screen. I'm going to react in real time, and I'll tell you my thoughts on the matchup. But I'll also tell you my thoughts on each matchup before team list drop, and I'll tell you how I would play it. Now, if anyone's going to accuse me of cheating, I'm not going to have my cursor over a number, knowing that if Penrith rests all the starters, I'm going to tell you to bet Dragons, knowing that bet's going to move in 10 seconds. I will let the market stabilize. We'll give it 20 or 30 minutes, and we'll just talk about strategy. And when I get a second, maybe when I'm playing some of the Sharpshooter clips, if I find any best bets live, I will share them, or else I'll advise you how I would play each and every game. So I'm going to give you more advice that could be really actionable in the next 20 minutes especially. Now, I appreciate not everyone catches this live, but I hope that, if you follow the pod, it's because you're interested in sort of punting mentality, strategy, and you'll find this fascinating all the same. I also want to tell you where all these markets opened, and then when the team list drop at 4, let's see how fast they move and let's see where they all move, okay? Before all of that, we've got to go back, as you can see on my screen, over round 26. But I really want to be fast with this because I want plenty of time to talk about round 27. Okay, the Panthers played the complete New South Wales Cup side against the Dogs. They actually made it a bit ugly. Look, people still weren't impressed by the Dogs. Well, if the Dogs winning by 24 didn't impress you, you should have played minus 20.5. It's another example where that line was 17.5 when the team lists were named. That was a pretty good bet. You could have played Dogs then, but by the time I went live, it was in the 20s. I left it alone. I said I could only play Dogs. Admittedly, if the Panthers had scored off that deflected kick late, the margin would have actually been cut to 12, and maybe Penrith would have covered. So it was ugly. Ivan spoiled the occasion by naming all his reserves, but we understand why. Then this was a belter of a game. I feel horrible for New Zealand going down 26-22 to the Eels, and another deflected kick try that was disallowed. And look, I think it was a really rough call, but watching it live, I just had this feeling, don't score. It looked like maybe the Warriors nicked it, and I have to be honest, as much as I wanted the Warriors to win it, it probably did graze Dimitri's fingernail. To overturn the call and to look at it that many times is a really rough call, but I don't think the game was decided on that play. I'm going to say the game was decided by 2 plays by Isaiah Iongi. One is Roger Tuivasa-Sheck makes a clean line break. The Warriors had all the momentum, and Iongi, one-on-one with Roger in space, he jockeyed him. He basically let him run past, caught up with him, jumped on his back and tackled him. When Iongi made a break later in the game, Nickel Cookster, I'm not sure what he tried to do. He just bull rushed him and got stood up and left at the altar, and Youngie ran it in. So 2 moments, 2 one-on-ones. Youngie won them both. What a rookie he is. Eels really massively put a dent in the Warriors' top 4 hopes. They controlled their own destiny. When we get to it soon, I'm going to tell you the Warriors are a very long shot of top 4 now in their season. I don't know if they're going to win another game this year now, but it's an interesting one to break down. Warriors Manly on Friday night. Okay, Storm Roosters. Obviously, this hurt me as a Finns fan. 10-0 Storm first half, and then the Roosters just didn't go away, and it was a blitz second half. And once the Roosters got out by more than 2 tries, the Storm completely capitulated. When did Melbourne ever lose a half 40-0? I mean, when do they concede 40 at all, let alone in a half? It was ridiculous. But the Roosters responding to that loss against Parramatta, and the points difference, I was prepared for an upset. I said I could only play the Roosters in that game with not much to play for Melbourne and with a few stars rested. But I was not prepared for the Roosters to win by so much. And that actually means the Dolphins have to overcome some margin this weekend as well because of the points damage that the Roosters did on Friday night. So, look, that signaled a lot of intent. The Roosters still probably need to win one more game, but that's why I said ultimately that game was probably going to decide who got the 8th spot. And now, the Roosters are very much in the box seat because of that big performance. The other interesting note is, does that 40-0 demolition second half change Bellamy's strategy for round 27? So I'll get into that later. Raiders, Tigers hung in there tough, and Raiders ultimately just covered because I think the line was 12.5, and secured their first minor premiership shield in 33 years. So congrats to the Raiders, and we cashed our best bet there, given that the Storm had lost the night before. And then I sort of thought, the more I thought about it, the Dragons would beat the Seagulls. So I was pretty impressed the Seagulls beating the Dragons 40-24, and Manly were playing with a lot of joy and a lot of speed, and the Dragons at home couldn't match it. Then I already did touch on this. Broncos 38 beating the Cowboys 30. Again, a rough one, but giving up a try with a minute to go in the first half when I think the Cowboys led 18-12, and giving up a try in the corner and then kicking off with about 35 seconds to go, and the Broncos shift and score again. That was brutal. How often have we talked this season about those tries right before halftime? And I mean, the Cowboys, if you're going to argue against the tip, I think the Cowboys' only second half try was an intercept. Oh, sorry, they did get 2, but another was late. But basically, the Broncos scored 4 or 5 tries, and it was only answered by 1 intercept try. So the Cowboys going to sleep. I did talk about how I could have played a Cowboys overs, and that would have won. And I should have, because the Cowboys, you could never trust their defense this season. And now they're done. They're on holidays because they are on the bye in round 27. And Brisbane knew the top 4 fate was in their hands. So that hurt us as well, because had New Zealand won, maybe the game wouldn't have meant as much for Brisbane. But it turned out that Brisbane maybe got a little boost. And I also was hearing all week Payne Haas wasn't going to play, and then he played a whale of a game and scored the decisive try. So thanks very much. We lost a bet by half a point. But I'm not as salty about that loss as I have been other ones. I can cop that one on the chin. Sharks beat the Knights. The Knights actually started really strong, 10-0, and I just knew it was going to flip, and I was hoping the Knights would make it interesting. So I was thinking, you better make some hay while you're on top here. And Marzu makes a line break off a clear obstruction when the commentators are literally like, Cronulla haven't turned up here. Well, they got a penalty from that. They scored, and then Cronulla had the ball, and Vossi's like, Cronulla not looking too threatening this set. And very next play, try, and the Sharks never looked back. The Sharks scored 40 unanswered, or 34 unanswered in this game at one point, and that got them the cover as well. And then the Finns, I thought it was going to be easy day at the office. It was 18-0 after 10 minutes, but to the Titans' credit, they came back, made it interesting, and the Dolphins got the win that they had to have, which keeps their season alive. The line was 5.5, so the Dolphins actually got the cover as well, but you would have liked to win by a little more margin there, just to so that all you had to do was win this weekend. Whereas now the Dolphins may have to. The Dolphins are going to catch up about 15 points on the Roosters, but the Roosters must lose. So if the Roosters lose, but the Roosters aren't going to lose by much if they do lose. So let's say the Roosters lose by 2 or 4, the Dolphins might need to beat Canberra by 12 points or something like that on Sunday. And then, and that's partially factored into why I'm playing the Dolphins as a best bet this week. But as I said before, I can't say I expect Souths to win. And of course, we'll get to that game. And I want to hear your thoughts as well. Although I've got that many sort of balls I'm trying to juggle in the air. I don't know how many comments I'll read out, but that's part of the advantage you get if you watch live. All right, I'm very conscious of the fact teams are dropping in 14 minutes. So let's spend 14 minutes with my speculation and prediction on each and every game. So I guess I could pull up the draw so that you can sort of see the context of the game I'm talking about. Okay. So I'm going to try and say what's on the line and what I think each team's going to do. Okay, Storm Broncos opened as a pick'em. Storm have been nudged into favoritism. My guess was that the Storm will play a half-strength team again. So you rested about 5 key players last week. So you'd bring them all back in. Okay, so the likes of King, Katoa, Coates, right? You bring them in. Grant is still suspended. But then you rest other important players this week. So like Munster, Pappenhausen, Liero, I would consider resting. And maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of them will rest. But then Jerome Hughes, by all accounts, is going to play. Some people said, don't waste him. You don't need the win. But maybe he needs the match fitness as well. So I'm sort of thinking Hughes might play. The fact that it's a Thursday game before the finals means even if you play full strength, everyone could still recover well enough to give a red-hot go in that week 1 finals, which is the all-important week. You win that, you get a fortnight off, and you host a prelim. But the fact that the Storm did lose by 30 as well, I think they're more inclined to really want to put a good show on and rebound. And I'm hearing that Bellamy is thinking that way and wants to go closer to full strength. So I wouldn't bet Brisbane now because I'm sort of anticipating it'll still be a pretty strong Storm side. The other issue is Reynolds was meant to get back this week, but they reckon he's aggravated his hammy in training and is no certainty to play. So I'm going to wait and see. I haven't bet into that game. I'm going to wait and see the Storm's intent based on who they pick. Like if the Storm name a really strong side, I wouldn't be surprised they come in and spoil the party for Brisbane. However, if the Storm decide that the finals is more important and keep a few key players on ice, Brisbane would be the only way I could look because you're going to get kitchen sink effort out of Brisbane, of course, at home with the top 4 in their top 4 fortune, their destiny in their own hands. Okay, then we move to Friday. So I'll revisit all these games once we know the team list, but this is my pre-team list preview, if you like, and also advice on how to action these. So Manly opened a 4.5-point favourite. They still are. Basically no chance of making the finals because they're not going to make up the points differential, but it is DCE's home farewell. Of course, they sort of already gave him a good send-off with the shellacking of the Finns, which was DCE's 350th. Hearing Paseka is going to come back from an ACL, like what, or Achilles, sorry, why would you? But it probably shows the importance of the occasion. But note that Kohler is injured and Sipley got suspended. All right, so other than that, Manly will name the strongest team they can. The Warriors can still get 4th, but they need Brisbane to lose, Cronulla to lose, and the Warriors themselves need to win this game, which is not easy and not likely. So basically, the Warriors are like a 10% chance of making the finals, of making top 4. As opposed to if they'd won last week, they would control their destiny. They'd be 40% or better. They just need to match the results of those below them. But now they've got to get a better result than Brisbane and Cronulla. So I really think that Webster should consider giving his team the bye this week. Like, don't send everyone over to Sydney. Keep your important players in New Zealand and accept that you're going to finish 5th or 6th. That's a home final. It's an elimination final. And nothing bad can happen. No one can get injured or suspended. And you get a little bit of a freshen up because you've been playing a lot of tight games, and you just you wave the white flag in this one. But that's not how it sounds. It sounds like New Zealand's going to name a strong side. I don't think that's smart, but they're going to argue, well, we can still get top 4 because Brisbane are an underdog and Cronulla are an underdog. So, if we win, then there is every chance. And that is true. If the Warriors win, well, the Warriors also will know if Brisbane won or lost. So, if Brisbane lost the night before, then the Warriors will think this is still a real chance to get top 4, which was their goal all year, especially after the strong start. So I could only play Manly because I think the smart move for New Zealand is you don't send your big guns. But I don't know if New Zealand's going to make the smart move. What do you guys think? So if there's no predicted changes for New Zealand and in a way the pressure's off, they're just going to turn up and just try and play good footy. New Zealand's a better side than Manly right now, given who's available. Like, Kohler's a big loss for Manly. We can't ignore that, even though they've played bloody well the last couple of weeks. It's another one I'm going to revisit. You would definitely bet Manly as quickly as you can if New Zealand names a weakened side. So I'm not going to claim anything that's going to move within 30 seconds as a best bet. But you guys, if you're watching live, there's nothing stopping you having your bet slip ready to go and firing on a couple of these games if you have an opinion, okay? So you can get extra advantages that I can't for my overall record. But again, there's many more opportunities than just the windows that I have that try and serve like the larger audience. Okay, Souths, Roosters. So in terms of team news, Latrell's not going to play. The line did go from 8.5 to 10.5 when that got out yesterday. Whiten will be back from suspended. They're saying Murray is most likely going to be named. He had to get through a session today. And that does signal some intent by Souths that it's guns blazing. I mean, I'd be surprised with Murray. He's not even gunning for a Kangaroos jersey, purely be playing sort of out of spite for the Roosters. But I think that would give the team a lift too. And the Roosters, of course, will name the strongest team they can. They won the second half 40-0 in Melbourne last week, and Sam Walker wasn't even playing, and now he's back. So, and you understand, of course, Roosters win, and they stamp a finals ticket, and they could even get to 7th, but they'll definitely get top 8 with a win. So it's a simple equation. It does make for a great game between the age-old rivals on Friday night. So I can talk about that game more so when we see the team list, because it's not a question of like anybody resting. And then we get to Dragons, Panthers on Saturday. So the Dragons, we don't need to talk about what they're going to do. That line opened plus 8.5. A little bit of money's come for Dragons, which would be speculation that Ivan could rest people again. Now, here's the thing. The Panthers have nothing to gain in this match. So it would be an automatic rest spot. The only reason I'm not certain that the Panthers will rest everyone is because they rested everyone last week. So it would be quite unprecedented and quite bold for Ivan to name the New South Wales Cup side again. I'm just telling you, I'm still considering that's a possibility. I know people think that's crazy that you're going to be flat and you're going to be rusty if none of your starters play for like 2 straight weeks. But ultimately, Penrith just needs to win 4 straight elimination games. They've got that chemistry. If they believe that they can sort of tune up in that first week game, and if they believe they're good enough to win the comp, then they probably believe they're good enough to beat someone from 5th to 8th, even if they are a bit rusty. So they use week 1 of the finals to tune up, and then they'll be fresh as the daisy going into round 2 of the finals, and they'll play someone who just lost, who might be a bit beat up, and away you go. On the other hand, do Penrith bring everyone back and sharpen up? Or third option is, does Penrith play some players? So, I don't know, really important guy like Cleary, who usually is carrying a niggle or 2, if not more. Maybe he sits out, but maybe some other Panthers play. So all sort of possibilities. And I think this line is indicating it'll be like a half-strength Penrith team, because I think a full-strength side would be a bigger favourite than 8.5. So if you think differently, if you think Penrith rests again, play the Dragons plus 8.5 now. If you think Penrith's going to go full strength, lay the 8.5 now. It's going to increase when these team lists come out in 6 minutes. Tigers, Titans, unaffected by finals. Spoon on the line. I've played overs for Titans, but we don't need to speculate on that one. Dogs, Sharks. You've heard my 2 best bets on Sharks. So you understand my thinking there. All right, it's just simple. The Dogs would be crazy to play anybody this week. Look at everyone else. Penrith have showed how you do it with their resting. The Raiders will rest this weekend. The Storm have rested some, might rest some more. Okay? Whoever comes fourth, I guess those teams are still fighting for position. The Dogs are locked into 3rd. So I'm pretty certain that's right. So there's nothing to gain or lose. It's a needless risk. And some people say, you want to be sort of firing on all cylinders, so you should play everyone. But it's a brutal sport. Anybody can get injured any game. Anyone can get suspended any game. I'm not just talking about spending the petrol. Like, even if the Dogs are like, no, we're playing well, we want to carry that momentum. It's not just about the energy that you're going to exert on a Saturday against a good team and a Cronulla team that might be fighting for top 4, but it's the risk that you've already lost Kiraz. Like Burton isn't kicking at goal. He's got some sort of issue. I feel like Crichton didn't take the last conversion because he said he had a tight hip. I just mean, like, at this time of the year, lots of guys have got different ailments. So even though Ciraldo said he wouldn't rest anyone, and I want to give a bit more background on this game too. The Sharks were $1.35 for this game up until Saturday, right? So it was basically assumed the Dogs would rest everyone. And then on Sunday, I saw that the odds flipped and the Dogs became $1.60 favourite. And I still don't really understand that move. I know Serraldo did say in his press conference, we plan to play full strength, but that is not signing a contract. I still think with a bit more reflection that the Dogs have every right and Serraldo can easily justify changing his mind. So I think that flipped favourite, the market got it wrong. It's actually now into Pick'em. And so I think that's a reflection that, of course, Cronulla might be playing for top 4, but the Dogs have nothing to gain from this one. So why should they be a clear favourite? Kikau was out last week. He's been ill. I wouldn't rush him back. And Kiraz is out a month. But I'm expecting in 4 minutes' time to see a bunch of Bulldogs guns on the sideline. As for the Sharks, the necessity hinges on the Brisbane result. But the thing is, they have to name their squad today. And you can only name 4 or 5 in the reserves. And you have to drop a couple off closer to kickoff. So what I think the Sharks have to do is they have to prepare as if it's a must-win. And then if Brisbane wins, maybe the Sharks can decide on the day, oh, let's sit a couple of guys out. Maybe Nico doesn't play, maybe 1 or 2 forwards, right? Trindle's going to be out. Nikora is still suspended. So I get that the Sharks aren't full strength, but I've got like a 50-50 chance that it means everything to Cronulla. And then my backup plan is it's a meaningless game for both teams. If Sharks can't make top 4, then it's meaningless for both. I'll still take them as an underdog, and I'm going to be comfortable. So it's a bit of a, it's 2 possibilities, but I've either got a fair bet or an outstanding bet. Okay, so sometimes we call that asymmetric risk. So I'm expecting a very understrength dog side, and I'm expecting a full strength shark side when we get to that. And I'm actually going to give you a multi as well on that game. But I'll do that now because you want to play the multi before the odds move potentially. So play Storm head-to-head into Sharks head-to-head. Okay, so that's $3.73 on Ladbrokes and Neds. Why? Because if Storm win, then Sharks have everything to play for. So Storm head-to-head, I don't love it, but it's a lean. And then into Sharks head-to-head, absolutely love that bet if the Storm have won, $3.73. That's a great correlated multi. If you think Brisbane wins, you could play Brisbane into Dogs, but my recommended multi is Storm into Sharks. And I'll give you another correlated multi. You guessed it. Rabbitohs head-to-head into Finns -9.5. And that pays $7.20 on Sportsbet because, as I've already told you, I think that the Raiders are going to send nobody important to Queensland. The line is going to keep going up. I think it gets to double digits because I think we're about to find out that it's the Raiders New South Wales Cup side, essentially. And they've already said up to 9 rumoured out. I think the line should be bigger than 9.5. But there's a fair chance that the Finns have nothing to play for on Sunday except pride. And I still think 9.5 is a good bet. But if you take a multi of Rabbitohs into Finns, well, now you've got the $3.80 leg is the hard part, is the Rabbitohs on Friday night, but it's possible. And then you've got just a slam dunk bet of the -9.5 when the Finns have to win to play finals and potentially by a margin. So $7.20 is Rabbitohs into Finns. And as I said before, $3.75 is Storm into Sharks. And we have 1 minute until team lists come out. So let's get prepared. Let's go to like the NRL homepage now and get ready to just refresh it because it'll be preloaded and it will be ready to be released at 4 p.m. I've just press refresh. My screen says 4 p.m. right now. And you guys tell me what you're seeing too, because I'm going to go game by game. Someone's saying Storm shortening. So have the Storm named a full strength side. Here we go. No sightings this. It's like Christmas morning, like unwrapping a present. Melbourne looks strong to me. Hughes is in there. Munster's not rested. Pappenhausen's not rested. They are resting Yuto Kamano and Blore, but they're getting back all the guys who rested last week. So Katoa, King, Meaney, Tui. Tui might have been suspended or head knock. Coates was rested. And then Hughes, as I said, and Jack Howarth is in the reserves too. All right. So, and is there any sign of Adam Reynolds? No, there's no Adam Reynolds for Brisbane. So I could only play Storm. So I can't claim this is the best bet. It'll move fast. But if I was you guys, I'd be slamming Melbourne Storm right now if you can get them anywhere near Pick'em. And I did just tell you to play the Melbourne Pick'em into Cronulla. And I guarantee that's already shortened. Let me bring up, this is the other thing I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up the lines in real time as well. So now Melbourne is already from -1.5 to -3.5. I still think that's a play. I think Melbourne's going to win. Okay. But I reckon within a few minutes, that Melbourne line will be closer to 6. So there you go. Let's refresh that one more time. And then we're going to change from head to head. Oops, I'm not trying to bet in real time, guys. We change from head to head to line. Yeah, Melbourne has moved to -3.5, and you understand why. And that's an interesting call. And maybe the big loss did influence bellyache. But again, I always said this was a wild card being the Thursday night. It was not a guarantee Melbourne would rest everyone. And Melbourne chose, let's rest in round 25. Let's use round 26. Let's use round 27 as the finals tune-up. And then let's back ourselves to win at home in week 1 of the finals. And then we'll get another rest because we'll get to rest in finals week 2 because we'll back ourselves to be sharp. We bring Hughes back in. As I said to Undertaker, give him a chance to run with the ones, all right? Because there wouldn't be much point playing Hughes, but all your backups are out there and they want to get a game under his belt. And I guess it's not full strength because Yuto Kamanu, is getting a rest, but it's pretty damn close to full strength for Melbourne. So that's a blow to Brisbane. And that helps our Sharks bet as well, as people are saying that Storm line has already gone to 5.5. And the multi I gave you, they were $1.82 just to win. So we've already I should have gone Storm as a best bet, of course. And I thought about that, but I also thought they could name a rested team. So I've already missed a good best bet there. But at the same time, I gave you the heads up and we at least took it as a multi-leg, if you liked my correlated play. Okay, Seagulls Warriors. Let's move to that. The Warriors, Wade Egan is out. I can't remember if he did get an injury or he's just getting a rest. But other than that, the Warriors are going full strength. So I'm kind of glad I didn't lay the points with Manly. I don't think this is the most wise decision by the Warriors because it's so little chance of making top 4. I reckon the Warriors should have just given themselves a rest. But they're going to send a strong team over to Manly. As for the Seagulls, I already told you Kohler was out. I'm kind of shocked if is Paseka named? No, maybe Paseka's not in there. I heard he was going to play, but I think the wiser decision is don't risk a guy one game back from Achilles. It's the final game of the year and you've got nothing to play for. So if I was on Manly, I'd kind of want Paseka there because it would really show intent of going out, giving everything for DCE's farewell. What else have I got to say on that game? Yeah, I think it's a tough one because the Warriors sometimes play better when there's less expectations. So the Warriors could easily win or cover that game. And especially if Brisbane did lose the night before, which is more likely based on the information we know now. So I think that Manly's not as appealing as they look to me. And I considered them as an early play. Now I think the Warriors can definitely make that interesting because they're sending their strongest team over and they're going to want to respond from that loss at home. So the Warriors will still get a home final the following week regardless, but they want to play that possibility of being at home twice in the finals should they come top 4. And no one thinks they're going to upset the Raiders in round 1, but stranger things have happened. Okay, let's move to Souths. I am seeing this in real time, so I'm hoping for the strongest possible Souths team. Oh, we're not seeing any Cam Murray. Obviously, we knew no Latrell. Oh, we are seeing Cam Murray. He is 17th man. Sorry. So Murray's most likely in. Jack Whiten's back in the centres. We knew he'd be back from suspension. Obviously, Johnston 2 tries away from the record. What's other notable news? The halves are Ashton Ward, the young fella, and Humphreys. So that's your big challenge in this game. And Ewan Aitken is in the reserves. As for the Roosters, as we expected, Sam Walker comes in. So Brandon Smith, that's the other one, on the bench too. So, I mean, the fireworks in that alone, it's going to be worth price of admission. Money's been coming for the Roosters, but I think that's just because people realised Latrell wasn't going to play because Latrell has this pinched nerve in his neck, I think. So I reckon the line is pretty reasonable in that game at about 10.5, 12.5. And I do think Souths have a chance. If I was going to bet that game, I'm not really shocked by the selections. I don't think it's smart to play Cam Murray, but I'm a Dolphins fan, so I am bloody excited that he's playing. And it's funny that Wayne was the inaugural, the foundational coach for the Finns. And while he didn't get the Finns to the finals, Wayne can be responsible for the Finns making the finals if he can be the architect of an upset on Friday night. So I can't wait to watch this. But if I was betting it and take my bias out of it that I want Souths to win, I think a Souths first half play would be all right, because I think Souths will come out and just absolutely give it to the Roosters. And I think it will naturally be tight, even though the Roosters are more talented. It's just going to be that much emotion and physicality. So you could play like a Souths first half plus 6.5. But I think I would play Roosters second half, because I think the Roosters class will prevail and the Roosters could run away with it. And if the line hasn't gone to 12.5 everywhere, you could still play like a -5.5 second half with the Roosters. And I like both of those. South plus 6.5 first half, Roosters -5.5 second half. So that's the way I'm sort of thinking about that game. I can't wait to watch it. Wish Latrell was in there too. But look, Souths have a fighting chance in that one. Let's move to Saturday. Dragons, Panthers. What have we got here? A lot of ins. Yes, this is back to a full strength Panthers side, isn't it? You guys can help me out if I make any mistakes, or if I don't mention something that's really notable, just because obviously I'm trying to process a lot of information and run a live podcast. Right, let's talk about the Dragons first. So no outs from last week. And they've named the same 17 for the final game at home. So still no Stewart or Moses Sully. And then Panthers, majority of stars are back, although To'o and Liam Martin are still given another week off. So I said that line indicated a close to full strength Penrith, and the bookies were right. It is a close to full strength Penrith. I mean, when you've got Alamotti, you can give To'o an extra week. So, I mean, they've got plenty of back row depth as well. You've got Liam Henry on the bench. You've got Garner and Sorensen. So you give Martin, and Martin got that injury in Origin. It was his hand, wasn't it? And the guys that played Origin have had a very high workload. To'o, as awesome as he's been, he's been banged up as well. Let's review some of these lines again. So in real time, is the Storm still only 3.5? See, the Storm, that's actually changed to 2.5. I still like the Storm, guys. So if that stays there much longer, we might have to just make that a best bet. It's hard because I don't get a chance to look at all the bookies. Manly line stayed firm. Roosters line around 11.5 and 12.5. So I do think like a Roosters second half line, you could get under a converted try, is a pretty good play there. Can you guys see that sort of Rabbitohs, all guns blazing but running out of steam? And Penrith, the line has gone all the way to 13.5. So it's a stronger than anticipated team. I suppose Penrith has nothing to play for other than just get rid of the rust ahead of finals. So perhaps I did speculate that I didn't think Nathan Cleary would play this week, and he alone's worth about 5 points on the point spread, So I was not really thinking about playing Penrith this week, because I didn't want to play a team with nothing to play for that is smart and that is savvy enough to potentially do what others haven't thought of doing, like rest 2 in a row. So I was only sort of thinking, I wonder if the Dragons are a play. I think the bookies were protecting against that, but they've actually kept the line too low. And that's why I said, if you think Penrith's going to be named a strong side, play that -8.5, because it's already moved 5 points. Okay. And I don't disagree with that move. The Dragons could also just be decimated by this point. The Dragons, all those tight battles, so many times they defied me where I laid the points against the Dragons and they fought tough. Like, how on earth did they stay in that New Zealand game and keep New Zealand to 14 points when half the forward pack was out? And then the minute I don't play against the Dragons, they get beat 40-0 by Souths and they get 40 put on them at home to Manly. So maybe the Dragons sort of have finally bottomed out, which I've been calling for several weeks. I don't have faith in the Dragons. I might have played the Dragons this weekend if Penrith was going to go B team again, for sure, but it's a different story. A full strength, or close enough to full strength Panthers. Like, as much as To'o is an amazing player, you don't lose that much when you've got good backups. And Penrith's going to want to get into finals form a little bit here. So Penrith, most likely will win that comfortably, and a double-digit line is quite justified. We can skip through Tigers Titans, and we want to look at Bulldogs Sharks. Oh, it's a pretty strong Bulldogs side. Nobody is out for the Dogs. Okay, so this is why the bookies flipped the Dogs into favourites, I guess, because the bookies potentially were confident that the Dogs wouldn't rest everyone. I think Serrato is insane. In fact, he's actually bringing Kickow back into the team after his infection. So I've gotten that read wrong. So let's look at it. And I've taken the Sharks plus half a point in each half, and now they're a 3.5 point underdog. So, I've sacrificed a point in each half because you can probably get plus 1.5 in each half. So I guess that was the risk, that it could go either way, but we haven't ended up with terrible plays. And of course, those odds will flip if Melbourne wins. So I'm still pretty comfortable. That's how good of a bet this was. I'm still comfortable, and we've got worst case scenario Bulldogs lineup, and I'm still like, yeah, it's an okay bet. Like, I still think you should play the Sharks, not the Dogs, based on the lineups, because if it plays out the way that it is, Cronulla has a chance. But of course, if Melbourne wins on Thursday night, then it's just all guns blazing for Cronulla. I really think that's a dumb move by Serraldo. Are they trying to win the comp or what? Because every other smart team rested players when they could. Dogs have nothing to gain. What happens if Stephen Crichton or Matty Burton, or Kickow gets injured in this game? So, geez, I'm disappointed in Serraldo there. Thought that he was a really smart coach. Everyone's like, oh, he's so smart. He upgraded with Galvin. He's pulled the right reins. Oh, now they're experimenting with Crichton playing like a second fullback. But I think that's a dumb move. And this is the other point I just wanted to make. I'm always a guy that says you should rest when in doubt, because of course, the argument is you rest, you're more fresh. You play, you're more sharp. So it's like rest versus rust. Like, what's the bigger consideration? But I always talk about the downside of, what about the injury? What about the game where you lose the guy for the season, or you lose the guy for 2 or 4 weeks, right? But I've sort of lost my train of thought there. But this is my other point. I don't necessarily think that resting everybody in round 27 gives you a better chance of winning in the week 1 of the finals. Like, I'm not saying if you rest everyone, you're definitely better off next week. I think there are pros and cons. Like, there is a balance to it, that if Melbourne rested everybody against Brisbane, you could say, hey, Melbourne hasn't played with all their best players together for a while. They might not be at their best in finals week 1. I agree. But I think resting everyone in round 27 gives you a better chance of winning the comp, because to win the comp, you've got to win 3 or 4 big games. So I think you sacrifice a little bit of cohesion now to be fresher in 4 weeks' time, when you hope you're in a grand final week and when everybody is hanging on by a thread and everyone is battered and bruised. So I think it's a long-term play to rest, and I think the Dogs have gone with a shorter-term approach, which I don't think is that wise, honestly, by Serraldo. And I'm annoyed. Man, a couple of best bets that aren't looking too great, but as I say, I'm not panicking. They're okay. And that line that you can see on the screen has given it away that the Raiders team is not looking too strong, because that Dolphins line is already now 12.5. So we did get the better of that game. Let's just confirm by looking at the lineups. Dolphins, Raiders, Dolphins, Herbie Farnworth in the reserves, but he's only going to play if they need to win. And even then, I reckon the Dolphins are good enough to win without Herbie. I'd keep him on ice an extra week. No one. Oh, Lemuelu is out for the Finns. He got that concussion. Now, the Raiders are without Strange, Young, Fogarty, Stewart, Tapane, Papali'i, Weeks, Sasangi, Starling, Hosking. So, an opportunity to make more changes as well. So that is 10 players. And it was, it was speculated up to 9. It's more than 9. It's 10. So that's what I thought. I thought every important player shouldn't play. So, I mean, why is Timoko? Why is Seb Chris still playing? Yeah, sure, give Ethan Sanders a go. Okay, Horsburgh, maybe he's played a bit off the bench. I wouldn't be playing Horsburgh in this game. So there's probably 3 or 4 guys I reckon Sticky could have even rested further. And I thought he might, and I thought this line might be 16.5. But Sticky's rested 80% of his team. And that's my point, getting back to the start of the show. The Dolphins will win this well, even if they don't need to. Even if the hopes are dashed on Friday night, I think the Dolphins get out there, KO Stadium, Sunday Arvo, and they're just going to run rings around this Raiders team. So what was my other correlated multi? It was Rabbitohs head-to-head at 380 into Dolphins minus 9.5, $1.90, and now minus 9.5 is already going to be like $1.60. Okay, so we're justified sort of with those two Dolphins players. I'm sure the Dolphins team total is now low 30s, and we got 28.5. And Undertaker's on the same, over 28.5. So we've done well there, and I was pretty confident, and that's why I sort of hit it from two angles. They're obviously quite correlated, but I feel pretty good about it. Whereas the Sharks ones, yes, they're both on the Sharks, but they're not that correlated because they're independent halves. So if the Sharks are down at halftime, you actually feel a little bit better about coming into the game. You know what I mean? So I'm not as worried about sort of the codependence on the two Sharks plays, which didn't work out that well for us. But that's where we're at with the Dolphins and Raiders game. So nothing to play for the Raiders. Sure, all the backup players want to rip in because they want to try and prove their worth to get a spot in the finals, or if someone gets injured, they want to be the next cab off the rank. I get all that. We see second string teams come in and they do fight hard, and it can be sometimes hard motivation wise for another opponent to handle them because it's just players you don't know a lot about and players with nothing to lose. But having said that, the Dolphins have got too much firepower and will prepare all week as if it's a must-win game, and will go out and want to win. And if they finish ninth, it's going to be a good year with a really disappointing end result, but still a good year for the Finns in the sense they played like a lot of great footy. Unfortunately, just couldn't defend in a couple of moments where it mattered the most. And then I don't even really need to look at Knights Eels team lists, but I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown of the game. I think I've covered every game now except let's rewind and let's talk about Titans Tigers then, just because we haven't really talked about how I see the game playing out much, and I do have a best bet on that. So we go back to Saturday. Titans Tigers is Saturday twilight, right? And the Titans are a 2.5 point underdog. But I think that my lean is Titans. Titans, if they win, they will get off the bottom of the ladder. I'm going to minimize my face so you can see a bit more of the teams. Question, if Herbie plays, what are they up to with Hammer? Why are they putting him at risk? Oh, if Herbie plays, Finns win. Yeah, Finns will win anyway. So I just think he's he's going to go on that English tour or play for the Lions, right? He's done a bad hammy. If the Dolphins don't need to win because the best they can come is ninth, we say thanks for a great season, Herbie. It's sad that we lost you. Maybe if we didn't lose you, we'd be playing finals. And you give him time to completely rehabilitate the injury. However, if the Dolphins are playing to make the 8, this is probably a bit bold, but I would actually back the team to win without him. And then obviously I'd play Herbie in week 1 of the finals, and you'd know that the hammy is good as gold, and then you're going to rip in against someone. But you do need to pretty much play the full strength side this week. So, look, the line right now is 12.5 with the Dolphins. If the Roosters win on Friday night, and then they say, all right, we're just going to it turns out a couple of our guys have been playing hurt. Maybe a couple of guys drop out of the team, and the line could actually decrease a little bit. So I'm aware that could happen, but I still think the line will be above 9.5. So that obviously, still was a good play. Sorry for being a little bit helter-skelter, guys, but I did tell you I would have a word. No one really cares about this game, Titans-Tigers, right? But I did share a best bet on it. So the Titans at home, spoon on the line because the Titans can get up to 16th if they win, and then they just need the Knights to lose the following day, and Para's a big favourite. The Titans kept fighting from 18-0 down, made it interesting against Finns, I suppose. It's obviously an overs play for me because I'm looking at the Tigers, so many exciting players in their spine, and same goes for the Gold Coast, and I'm keen to see Kinney get a bit more burn as well, and that's why I'm going to play the Titans team total over. You know what I realized I have sort of messed up here, guys, but I should have actually played the Sharpshooters clips before the team list dropped because they picked it before team lists. Right, so I hope I haven't let the Sharpshooters down. Although I tell you what, I actually think it's going to work out for the boys. I wonder. No, this is getting. If Benny Howard is watching live, Benny, You tell me if you want to release your play, because I haven't shared your play yet, and the team lists have not gone in your favor. So I'm going to give Benny the chance to just not release his play because no harm done. But if he still likes it, then reach out to me. But I might actually not tell you Benny's play because the team list went against him. And yeah. Oh, he wants to release it. All right. Well, Benny, fair enough. That's pretty emphatic, capital letters. Okay, so Benny Howard. Well, actually, I don't have to tell you his play. We can just have a listen. Let's find it here.
Hey TryPod fam, this is Benny from Benny and the Bets, giving you a live tip for the Tuesday preview. About to go live soon. So yeah, I'm just going to take the Broncos against the Melbourne Storm. That's paying $2.02. That's on Sportsbet and BetRight. I just feel like going off those odds, the Storm will rest players. Bellamy did try to allude to he wasn't going to rest players this week, but during the press conference post-match after the Roosters game, he did say he would rest not many players. So I do believe maybe Wishart, maybe Sean Bloor, maybe a few others, Trent Liero will probably get a spell, will get a rest. And yeah, I do like the Broncos here. I feel like they're in a bit of form. They have probably beaten lesser sort of teams, but I feel like the Storm, yeah, they can't worsen or better the position on the ladder, whereas the Broncos are going for top 4, so it'll mean a lot for them in their premiership hope. So I think they'll come out here going pretty hard. So yeah, Broncos at $2.02. Gamble responsibly.
So look, I've got to be honest. I gave you a second chance there, Benny. There was really no. I wouldn't have wanted that clip played. Now, when Benny recorded it before this show, that actually was a very fair take and a good breakdown, and that's why I didn't play Storm as a best bet, because I thought some of those same reasons, and I wouldn't have been shocked if Melbourne rested. But I did Benny a favour by forgetting to play that. Now, I would have absolutely stitched Benny up if Melbourne's team had come out half strength, because that bet would have been gone. But clearly, you can still play Brisbane, and I think Benny said around the $2 mark, but now it's out to like $2.30, right? So at least you guys have all been given fair warning that Benny is a gun tipster. He played Brisbane for some reasons that have not panned out, but you didn't hear the tip until you already knew more information. So you can play Brisbane head-to-head at a better price, or you can play plus 2.5, or you can leave it. That's up to you. Now, luckily, because I wasn't thinking straight, I sort of thought I'll keep those clips till later to buy myself time. But in fairness to the Sharpshooters, I should have played them before the lineups because that's when they were made. But luckily, I don't think Benny Williamson's tip is affected either.
G'day TryPod fam. As always, thanks to the lads for having me on. Benny from Benny's Best Bets here. Been trading wins for losses recently. I'm leaving for Bali this afternoon. I won't have time to get a try scorer tip out. So this week I'm going to go with Manly by 4.5. You can get that widely across pretty much every bookie, but $1.90 on Ladbrokes is where I'm going to take it. Rookie has not been a happy hunting ground for the Warriors over the last decade. They've only won 2 games. The line's been cleared 4 out of 5 times in the last 5 years, which is all 5 matchups there. The Warriors won the 5th in 2020. That's the most recent time that they've won. The Warriors have no reason to take all the boys across the ditch. Basically should be resting a bunch, or I would expect them to rest some big names in prep for a finals. Manly, almost impossible to make it. But DCE's last game, Brookvale, I reckon Tommy Turbo's going to have a day out. Should be like the Manly of old, or the Manly we should have seen this year. But I reckon they win, and they win comfortably. So I'd be taking this anywhere under 6. 4.5 is good for me. Cheers, lads.
So I would have let Benny down if New Zealand decided to rest half their team, but New Zealand have named full strength. So I think that's an okay play by Benny, and the line is still 5.5. And you've heard why Benny likes it. Okay. Nicole's tip is a try scorer on the Eels game. So let's talk about Eels Knights in a minute. So that's not going to hurt anyone that I haven't played that yet. And I'll tell you, Padonis sent me a tip that I forgot to read as well. I was going to read it, but I forgot to read before Teamless, and it hasn't panned out for him either. So he said disregard, and that's how it goes. I actually would have felt terrible if the boys had sent me some tips that all would have beat the number and I didn't release in time. So at least I haven't let anyone down. I've probably saved you guys from a couple of situations that didn't work out that well. So I don't know if I should out Padonis and say who he was looking at or not. I'll let Padonis decide if he wants to say the bet he was going to play. He told me he'll come up with a revised play and he'll post it in the group. And Padonis is cooking. He's looking for some multis too. I think he's actually going to play the same play, but he's going to take the new odds now. So he's still got his reasons behind it, but I'll let Padonis explain that. And that's the beauty of being in the TryPod group. I want to give these boys a voice, but I do put them all under a bit of pressure. I tell them, send me a clip every week. You've got to get it to me before I'm live so I can download it and all that. But you've got to get it to me after team list so it's a current number. And then this week I said, boys, I'm changing it up on you. I'm going early. It's a unique opportunity because you can find an early play based on your speculation. But, I appreciate everyone's working and it's not easy. So thank you to all the boys, all in profit, apart from Nicole, who is obviously one hit away from leading the pack. And speaking of Nicole, yeah, Benny, you do get the new odds. That's fair. We'll grade Benny at the new odds because I did not release his tips and no one was able to get Broncos at $2. And I gave Benny the option of just withholding the tip, but he said he stands by it. So that's a genuine tip. And at the time, Benny Howard tipped it, $2.35. Okay, so that's fine. So where are we at now? We've got one more game to discuss, I think, because I think we've of course, I didn't go same format, so I didn't go as structured breakdown game by game, but I think I've covered a fair bit on each and every game, and we're just under the hour mark. So let's listen to Nicole's try scorer tip on Eels Knights, and maybe I'll have a word on that game because it's my final best bet of the round, and then we get out of here.
Hey everyone, it's Nicole from Wiki. Hope you guys pumped for round 27 in the NRL. Hey, look, the teams and the prices are not up for try scorers when I'm doing this tip, but I'm going to go with Matt Dury from the Parramatta Eels. I'm going to assume he's double-digit odds on Bet365. Reason I'm going with him, strong ball runner. He's scored at least one, if not two tries already this season. I'm trying to pick the opponents of the Knights because they conceded 3 middle forward tries last week to the Sharks, Hazelton, Talakai, and Braden Uele. Really like Matt Dury, and I'm thinking you should get double-digit odds for him on Bet365. Guys, as always, Google Wiki Linktree, all our stuff's free. We've had our mobile app roll out a couple of weeks ago. We've already had, I think, 300 odd people try it out. We'd love to get some feedback from you guys. Our odds comparison, our tips, and a whole bunch of other stuff is free on there, including our Discord with over 5,000 people. Catch you guys soon. Gamble responsibly. Good luck for the weekend.
So, as Nicole said to me, he's looking forward to this weekend. He's got, there's some meaningless games. There's some good weather. There's going to be tries aplenty. He's picked a try scorer in Eels Knights. I'm playing overs in that game. Let me bring it up again. So I've played over 48.5, $1.91, 365. And the Knights have lost how many in a row? Please fact check me. If I get it wrong, it's about 7 in a row for Newcastle now, and they might drop all the way to last. And the Knights have been flogged in the last 4 or 5 as well. So it's not just losing, but it's losing badly. The Eels, the opposite. The Eels have been finishing really strong. Great win over the Ditch, albeit controversial. So the Knights have got nothing to play for. Their coach literally handed in his own resignation. The fact that the Knights have been butchering a bunch of tries, I actually think the Knights are a little bit better than probably are given credit for. The Knights easily could have covered against Cronulla last week, could have covered against Brisbane if they didn't butcher tries, right? So I just have this feeling that the Knights will, final game, absolutely nothing to lose against another team that's not going to be playing high intensity. The Knights probably do get a few points. And the thing is, even if the Eels are just dialed in and just give the Knights nothing, the Eels might score 40 plus themselves. So blowout potential doesn't hurt me. Probably the one week that comes to mind is when the Cowboys beat the Knights 38-4, which was so annoying because it was a total blowout, but it stayed under. But that's pretty rare. Often if one team just, totally gets on top, then there'll be tries aplenty. And, or it could be a little bit of a shootout as well. So I don't think I have to overly sell to you why I'm playing overs in the final regular season game between two teams that might meet up with Benny Williamson over in Bali shortly after. So that's why I've played overs. And that should do it, guys. I'm planning a special finals preview show next week, a collab. Whether I do my regular show or whether that replaces it, I'm not certain. So I guess follow on social media. There's a possibility that I may not be here in the regular time slot next week because I might do a special show that could be, potentially on the Wednesday. But I'll have to let you guys know once that gets organized. Please let me know how you found the show today. I know that I got people out of sync, and I really do strive to be as consistent as possible, to be as easy to follow as possible. But I thought that ultimately we could do something different that could be worthwhile and interesting and entertaining for you. I hope it was. I'm going to refresh the lines one more time just to see if anything else has moved. You know what? All right, one final decision to make. I'm gonna call it. All right, I'm gonna do this, guys. I'm just feeling frisky. I'm gonna add one more best bet. So that's gonna give us 7 for. That's gonna give us 7 for the week. Can you guess what my best bet's gonna be? You probably can. You can see it on the screen. I'm stalling because I'm just checking all the bookies just to make sure anytime I share a play, I want to get the best of the number. And I actually am going to go head-to-head against Benny Howard, even though he did beat us last week. I'm going to lay Melbourne minus 2.5, $1.90. Okay, this is not me playing it at 4:01 when I saw they named their strongest team. This is me playing it at 4:30 when it's sat there for half an hour. You can play that right now. Storm minus 2.5 at $1.90 on Sportsbet. I'm just checking where else that's available. It's 3.5 on 365. I might be crazy, or Dabble might have pulled the game off the board. It's moved to 4.5. Ladbrokes, Neds. Better might be worth a check as well. See what Tristan's got it at. But I explained that I would have played Melbourne if I knew the team they were going to come out with. Yeah, minus 3.5 on Better, which is exactly the same thing. So 3.5 or 2.5, but obviously for best bet purposes, we'll call it minus 2.5. So let me add that to the list, and I'll put it on the screen. So that's our most best bets for the season in round 27. But it's a unique week with unique opportunities, as I said. So let's go out and get it. I'll put it in the text. And let me know what you think of those. Oh, it's going to come out as a bit of a dog's breakfast in that text, but you're going to get the idea. So I think a full-strength Melbourne coming into Brisbane that's still got no Willison, no Reynolds, no Mam, and the fact that the Storm are kind of fresh. Yes, no Harry Grant, but the fact that the Storm are kind of fresh because 5 important players didn't play last week, and now Hughes is back. And the fact that Brisbane's a rival, it's going to be a big crowd, and I think that they will be happy to sort of dash Brisbane's hopes. I think Melbourne's going to win that game, and laying a very low number. And of course, that would help the Sharks play, but I'm not playing, as I always say, I'm not playing something because I hope it happens. I'm playing it because I think that's good value. So, I mean, I even tipped my hand and said that line will move further when it got to 3.5, and it hasn't for the most part. It's stabilized there. So I'm surprised. So let's play that. That's a consensus. Well, it's not a consensus because it is 4.5 in one location, but it's had enough time to level out, and it's still a low line. And I'm happy with that. Pretty strong Storm side with some fresh troops coming back in. So 7 best bets to discuss in the comments with me as well. Carry the conversation through the week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your rugby league. And I'll see you next Tuesday or Wednesday to preview the finals. We've gone through a whole regular season in our 11th year with 58%, with 7 best bets on the line. That could go up or down, and I'll face you guys in a week either way. And I hope you've enjoyed this special edition of the TryPod, early one as well. Lego.